Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. And if you'll please rise, we'll say the pledge together. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Workman?
Yes.
Ms. Regola Dye?
Yes.
Mrs. Getzman?
Yes.
Dr. Bennett?
Yes, thank you. And I would entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes of our July 20th meeting.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
One second.
Thank you, Mr. Workman. And were there any corrections or questions? Would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Getzman?
Yes.
Mr. Workman?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson? Yes. Ms. Regola Dye?
Yes.
Dr. Bennett?
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. Comments of board members. Would you like to begin, Mr. Thompson?
We continue to appreciate the flexibility demonstrated by all the administration and teachers and support people across the district. When we sat here a month ago, we said it's fluid. We didn't realize just how fluid it really was, right? So here we are tonight, and I just really appreciate everybody's hard work and know the journey is actually just beginning.
Thank you, Mr. Workman.
Welcome. I'd like to echo what Mr. Thompson said. When we last met, we had a plan. That plan was fluid and it's changed, and it may change again. So really appreciate everyone's patience, Bill and his staff. And I know there's been a lot of hard work and a lot of long hours that have went into this. And like Mr. Thompson said, this is a journey that's just beginning. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Geffen.
I'm not sure what's left to say, but I agree and appreciate what Mr. Thompson and Mr. Workman had to say. And hats off to all the parents that have been patient as they have waited for their cohorts. Hopefully everybody has those, and we are looking forward to getting all of our kids back in our buildings. So thank you to all the parents and their patience, and a special shout out to all the teachers and staff as they continue to navigate through these unclear waters. So thank you to all of them as well.
Thank you, Ms. Regola-Dye.
Good evening and thank you. I regret that I again cannot be there in person for this meeting, but I deeply appreciate the accommodations, and my family does as well, for me to do this remotely. I think that we've gone through every metaphor possible to describe our situation. I guess I think of public education as the ship that's moored, and we're in a storm, and there's a lot of waves buffeting us about, but somehow or other, our ship still stays afloat thanks to the crew of public education. And that crew includes our community. So we continue to thank you for your support. We know that you have our back and we have yours. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would just like to welcome everyone this evening as well. And congratulations to the teachers for their first day back, and welcome to them. And again, thanks to everyone for all they're doing to make this work. So I really appreciate it. This past Tuesday, most of you probably heard the governor speak, and Dr. Patty Manning, Chief of Staff at Cincinnati Children's Hospital, was interviewed, and she provided 4 tips for school safety. And the 4 strategies were masking and distance and hand hygiene and cleaning surfaces. And I feel like we've tried to implement all of those and support all of those. So we're doing the best that we can. So hang in there with us. And one of the good points that she made was that what happens in the community will impact our schools. So I just ask everyone to be respectful of others, and wear your masks and back up and wash up, just like Lieutenant Governor said. That was his little slogan: back up, wash up, mask up. And some advice to parents that Dr. Manning also provided was to let the kids know that it's okay to be uncertain and to just answer their questions and ask them how they're feeling. And also to rehearse the mask wearing at home so that they know what to do and they feel comfortable with that. And to practice distancing and to practice washing their hands properly. And to get in a schedule and to begin to develop a structure to begin school. So those were some tips that she gave, which I thought were really good to pass along. And again, it's nice to be here this evening and to see all my fellow board members, and we're just ready to go. And thank you, Mr. Cedar, for all that you've been doing and fielding all the emails and questions and all the changes. So appreciate that. And I don't believe there are any commendations. Is that correct? Or
No accommodations tonight.
okay, we'll move ahead then to see if I don't think our senior class president has yet joined us. Mrs. Nesbitt, do you have anything?
It's been a long, stressful summer, and there's a little bit of relief today to get actually back into school and start focusing on actually the school. So we've got a long way to go, and I think everyone said it's fluid and trying to just be prepared to change it a moment's notice.
Great, thank you. And I don't see Mike here. Oh, yes, you're hiding behind. Would you like to share anything this evening?
I'd just like to say the support staff for Vernon City Schools, especially the 12-month staff who worked hard this summer, cleaning and disinfecting our buildings, getting ready for the first day of school. I believe if you walk around to the buildings, you'll see that they're pretty spick and span now, and that we're ready to start next Tuesday. With our new task at hand, we're disinfecting buildings several times a day. I also wanted to mention too, that we did have some cooks work through the summer, through the summer work, summer food program. I'd like to thank them for what they did.
Great, thank you so much. And
I would just say to both of those groups, with Darcy and Mike leading their respective organizations. I know with Darcy, my wife said the other day, she said, well, you talk to Darcy more than you call me. And there's probably some truth to that lately anyway. And Mike and Opsy have also been just incredibly accommodating, understand the challenges that we have. And I know Mike's group is an all hands on deck crew right now and willing to do whatever it needs to be done. And so I can't thank both organizations enough.
let's give them a hand. And we also have some public participation. Mr. Matt Snow, if you'd like to go to the mic. Or is there a mic there?
Thank you. Members of the board, again, for allowing me some time. Again, I'm at 16914 Glen Road. Last time I spoke mostly as a member or a parent of 3 students in the district. I'm going to give a few comments on that. And then also I'm here on behalf of a local group, Action for Equality. We've been spending a lot of time with City Council, making sure that our citizens are protected equally across all races and representations, and was glad to see Resolution 3220 back on the agenda. So, education, making sure that people of all colors and race feel welcome, and that there's a predominantly white community. Our children are being exposed to other ethnic groups and their beliefs and their history and the struggles they've had. So we're continuing to develop books and resources for teachers. We'll continue to do that. We're still at the early stages, so you'll see me many more times on that topic. But our focus now really going back to the parent student side is back to the planning. I want to continue the analogy. Ms. Rigola stole my thunder a little bit of the idea of being at sea and knowing that this is fluid, knowing that there are plans being made. But a lot of times I think as parents, we don't see those until they're baked or until we've reached a destination. And I think in this time of fluidity, we'd like a little more frequent communication, a little more transparency, so that we're planning and we're able to adjust, whether that's finding private lessons for our 8th grader who's in band, who doesn't have that interaction that he's needed, and his motivation's kind of waned? Or how do we carry momentum for our soon-to-be kindergartner and getting him on a great start? So we're having to learn and plan and do a lot in evaluating digital programs and hybrid solutions that quite frankly, we've not been trained or prepared for. And part of our decision-making and moving back to Knox County, a great deal of that rested on the quality of the education our kids would get here and the belief we have in public schools as well. So again, I hope we don't take that as demeaning or attacking, but we just want more. We want to know more frequently so that we can continue to plan and revise our plans because it's hard to plan around a maybe or, it could be this or it could be that. So a little more definition. And my last comment, I want to thank Mr. Thompson for his response from my comments last meeting. I'll send around the presentation I sent him. I don't have answers on the right metrics because it's a process. And so I would love to engage with any or all of you in that process that I found successful in my professional career around finding that guiding star. Again, not having a firm plan, but how do we ensure that we're all working from the same map? We all have that same North Star that we're working toward. And then you build a communication plan around that. So again, happy to be a resource and help with that, but would love to see some more communication. Thanks.
Thank you. And I don't have any others, so we'll move ahead then to additions and deletions.
I do have an addition to the agenda tonight under certificated personnel. Lori Shelley was added as a Mount Vernon Middle School science teacher. So we did add her to the agenda due to a late resignation and interview process. We were able to secure that over the weekend and added it to the agenda from the one that was sent out to you earlier.
And your report.
Okay, I'll take a couple deep breaths because probably like Matt, I'm gonna have to pull this away a lot. So I did want to give a little bit of a restart update here. Over the weekend, we sent our restart guidance out. And one of the challenges certainly of communication during this time is just understanding how things change so quickly. And sometimes when you get information out and you know that it's not probably the final information, you're waiting on a governor's announcement on a Tuesday, then it goes to Thursday, and you're trying to get out the right information so that you don't have to change course 2 days later. It can become really challenging. But we did put out some guidance on Friday, actually went out Saturday morning. And I would encourage folks to get a chance to take a look at that. I wanted to highlight a few of those for the board this evening. And so I'll go ahead and just kind of play this as we go down through. First of all, it was that back to school restart update. It was posted on the district website. Again, it's www.mvcsd.us. If you go down to this very first recent news article, you're going to notice you click on this guidance right there and it will pull up the whole thing. And it's about 13 pages. And it really starts from the beginning. And I'll highlight some of those, but it takes you all the way down through. The other thing I wanted you to point your interest to on this very same page on the website is a really good article by Grant Pepper. Grant is here again. Thank you, Grant, but keeping students safe. And Grant and I have had some great conversations over the past couple of years. I know most notably was our 5 o'clock in the morning trip to check the roads, but Grant came and checked on some of our barriers and the things that we're putting in. And so if you haven't read that, I would encourage you to go see that as well. As you get into the document itself, this is one of the things you're going to see early on. I think it kind of goes back to what Matt had described about a month ago. Just, do we have some sort of a guiding North Star to have some metric to make some decisions? And talking with Julie Miller at the health department, and we talk on basically a weekly basis, we really decided to kind of hitch our wagon a little bit, or one of those things that would guide us to the state health advisory system. Currently, the state has a system of 4 levels, yellow, orange, red, and purple. And we decided that when Knox County becomes one of those levels, it would help guide us a little bit along the way. And so I've linked my own little alert system based upon Knox County, all to say that if we're in level 1 or level 2 as a county, And Knox County has been yellow, then we went orange, and then we went orange again. We really thought we were going red on a couple of occasions. Thankfully, we bounced back the other direction, but we thought we would tie one of our metrics to this. So if we're in level 1, we would be, or level 2, we would be in either a traditional green 5 days a week or a hybrid yellow mode, which is what we have since gone to 3 or 4 weeks ago. We really went to the hybrid mode 3 weeks ago, quite frankly, for the certainty and to be able to give parents some assurance that we're going to be in this mode for the 9 weeks. You know, we would all love to be green, but with everything being so fluctuating and changing, and quite frankly, 3 weeks ago, we were almost sure we were going red. And the conversation at the health department was, boy, if the county goes red, I really want you all superintendents to be thinking about hybrid or perhaps even going to remote. We wanted to take out that variable from a week to week and trying to just worry about what Thursday would bring. And so to develop that consistency, we decided that we would go hybrid, which I believe to this day is still the right decision. Having 50% fewer students allows us to greater social distance. I can get 6 feet between desks in the hybrid mode, where it became really clear that I just couldn't do that in the green. So we tied it to this system, but I will also say, and I'll kind of highlight it right there, we also need to be flexible and adapt to our own internal needs. Because quite frankly, you know, hopefully Knox County stays in a yellow mode or an orange and doesn't get to red. But we could have our own internal challenges where we have bus drivers or teachers or students who would unfortunately find themselves testing COVID positive. And we might have to react as a district to maybe a classroom needing to be shut down, hopefully never a building, but you never know, and you never know about your district. It's just changing so fluidly that we need that flexibility. So the one other metric we threw in, again, based on our conversations before, was we said we would do our best to not make a quick shift without some 48 hours notice. I mean, to just spring it upon you and say, hey, we're shifting tomorrow, that makes it tough on families and parents.
Teachers.
And teachers.
And
And at the
staff.
same token, we said, if we would ever shift, if we were ever green and would then go, let's say hybrid, we would want to stay in that mode for 14 days just to make sure we could develop some consistency. So even though I know it's not the most, I mean, I know there are parents who are struggling with the hybrid mode, and I understand the daycare piece and the childcare piece. We just thought getting it out there ahead of time would give them a chance to help make some of those adjustments. And so that was kind of our hope and plan all along. As we get down into this next one, this is in the policy as well. Again, you talk about something changing quickly. On Thursday afternoon, we still didn't have this guidance. You heard the governor say some things. He actually put out an order on August 4th about face masks for grades K-12. There wasn't an order put out for 2 weeks. We kept waiting to find the guidance. And then he was asked at his press conference on Thursday, when is this guidance coming out? And he said it was going to be posted after the meeting. Trust me, I was checking all night on Thursday, and at 9:30, the guidance came out. What we did was we immediately took that guidance and we put it into our restart document. And I wanted to highlight a couple things here for you because this is one of those topics that people have certainly some concerns over. Again, we finally got the order on the 13th, except as provided herein, all students, faculty, staff, and children in any child care setting, school, building, or other location that provides care or education to any child in kindergarten through 12th grade in the state of Ohio shall wear a facial covering at all times when. And they list these items. Any indoor location, including but not limited to classrooms, gymnasium, offices, locker rooms, hallways, cafeteria, and locker bays. Outdoors on school property when you are unable to consistently maintain 6 feet of social distancing. So we're really going to work hard at that part when we go outside. Waiting on a school bus, outdoors and unable to maintain social distancing, your mask should be on. And we had said all along that we wanted a mask when students were on the bus, okay? The interesting piece that came in here is this next page, and it's called Face Mask Exemptions. And this is one that, quite frankly, I've had some concerns about, and I was at least pleased to see that they put in some exemptions during specific situations. And I'm not going to read down through every one of those because you can do that, but there's medical conditions, there's when communication for hearing impaired. I mean, there's the basics, but when you get down to items E and F, I want to bring special attention to these. Where students and staff can maintain distancing of at least 6 feet and removal of the facial covering is necessary for instructional purposes, including instruction in a foreign language, English language, for non-native speakers, for other subjects who are wearing facial coverings, would prohibit participation in a normal classroom activity. So that exemption is in there, and we're going to try to get some better clearance and guidance related to that. But I've had conversations recently with a lot of folks, and we're talking to each other, and when you can't see my face or my lips or things move, it makes it really tough to communicate. So when you look at kindergarten students or first grade or second grade students, or even high school students, at some point you might have to demask to make sure that you can communicate properly. We have bought face masks for every teacher in the district. This guidance went on to say that a face shield is not a substitute for this face mask, but it does talk about 6 foot social distancing. And if we had to deface mask because they needed to see our lips move, we would make sure that we had something on as far as that, and we'd have to be farther than 6 feet away. Item F is really important to me because I'm going to tell you, we're going to have this meeting tonight, and we're all going to take a deep breath and walk outside and just breathe in the fresh air, right? Item F, students are able to maintain a distance of 6 feet or more, and a mask break is deemed necessary by the educator supervising the educational setting. And what that means, quite frankly, is this. If I looked out in this audience and you were my students and I started to see kids doing this, and I might have to say, kids, we're all social distance 6 feet or greater right now. I need you to stay in your seat. You can demask for a few minutes and just listen to me as I'm talking. And just being able to provide a mask break is really, really going to be important at different times. We may find ourselves going out to recesses more often. We may find ourselves taking these little short 1 to 2 to 3 minute mask breaks for our students, providing we can keep social distancing. And we couldn't do that if we were in green. We could do that in our hybrid mode right now because I think our kids are going to need this. And yet we got to empower our teachers to use it the right way. So that'll be really important. And then you can read the other exemptions. So I wanted to highlight that face mask piece because it was just recent guidance that came out. We just had to go in and change some things in the original guidance document so we could move forward. This next slide, you'll find it in the nurses section, in the health and safety section. We are asking all parents and students, you'll need to perform a following health check daily before coming to school. And this document over here on the right, it's in the restart guidance. As you look down through there, if your temperature is 100.4 degrees or higher and you put a check mark in there, then you should be staying home. And we go all the way down through and check these lists. And if you put a check mark in the box, and you can read through all of these, it's important to understand that we want you to stay home. Attendance is going to be a really fluid thing this year in the state of Ohio. So don't think we're sending people to truancy because you are staying home because you have a fever or one of these other things. The other challenge we have, quite frankly, and I'll just point this one out, the second one here, a sore throat. There does have to come some common sense here in my mind. I'm an allergy guy. In the spring and the fall, I get allergies. And I mean, I'm Zyrtec, I'm nasal spray, I'm eye drops. And, if it's in the evening or I've been out at a game, I can go home and have postnasal drip and I get a little bit of a sore throat. And parents just have to understand, they have to use common sense and understand where it all fits and lies in there. All right. Now, obviously, if that's not the case and your child wakes up with a sore throat, then we want them to stay at home. So health checks need to be performed on a regular basis. Arrival and dismissal, I put that on here. Students arriving to school must enter the building with their mask on in an orderly manner, maintaining 6 feet of social distancing. Right now, I have every school is planning this week a welcome back kind of virtual open house. And they're going to, in their virtual open house, they're going to kind of share with the students in their building a lot of the stuff that's in this restart guidance, but they're also going to share how they're going to arrive, how they're going to dismiss. They're going to put all their own little spins on it. So I can't wait to show you all these little videos, but we can't have what happened up here in the top right. All right. This was Georgia, and everybody saw these videos of Georgia. This was their first day of school. We can't have this. All right. We want to have something a little bit more like this at the bottom, but that's going to take a lot of coordination, and it's going to take a lot of folks really making sure we start to develop these patterns. Having 50% of our student population will allow us to better develop the patterns, and at the same time, fewer students will be coming in and out. So that was one I wanted to highlight. Custodial maintenance, I thought I would highlight this one. You'll notice here, we've had a lot of people talking about air quality. Rick has went overboard and really upgraded us from MERV 8 filters to MERV 13 filters throughout the district. We're changing them 4 times a year versus 2 times a year. Staying hydrated is really important, but also doing it in the right way is important. Every drinking fountain in the district will have a bottle fill opener. Now, we may not have every one of them installed by next Monday because there right now is a we're waiting to get some of those in, and they're supposed to be here. But we'll probably end up turning off these bubblers. These will be turned off, and we're really encouraging, and you'll probably see this in the video, encouraging kids to bring water bottles, like that big, nice, big bottle over there. All right. And so, just trying to keep our kids hydrated and do it in a safe way. Thought I would highlight lunch and breakfast here. Obviously, the lunchtime preparation is going to be a little bit different. During the first few weeks, we're going to be doing more of grab and go type lunch and breakfast, but they'll be delivering those obviously in a cafeteria setting. We're hoping based on 50% enrollment that we can use most of our cafeterias, but we still may have to, in some instances when we can't stagger it enough, we may have to use the gymnasium. So like, for instance, I know here at Twin Oak, they'll have their cafeteria tables here. They're actually going to have cafeteria tables over here on this side, and they'll stagger enough, but to get the right number of people in here, we're going to be utilizing all of our spaces. Some elementaries may say K1, 2 will be in the cafeteria, but maybe 3, 4, and 5 have to be in the classroom. So we're making those accommodations to try to keep that 6-foot social distancing. The other thing I wanted to highlight here is we plan on providing meals to our free and reduced lunch students who are either in hybrid or digital online. So if our youngsters and their parents are free or reduced, and by the way, you can get that application online, then we want to provide you a meal 3 days that you're not here, and then the 2 days you are, you'll be free. Likewise, if you're a free and reduced lunch person or student who is actually doing digital, you're home 5 days a week, we want to provide you 5 meals of breakfast and lunch. We're going to distribute those on Mondays. We're actually going to distribute the whole week on that Monday. All right. So we'll have the cafeterias open in your local cafeterias from 10 to 12. Parents will come, they'll get a bag. If you're a digital person, you might be getting 5 that get put in one bag, and that's your meals for the week. If you're a hybrid student, you'll get 3. The 2 that you're there, you'll get it just like you normally do. So we want to keep that piece going. It's not to every student like we were able to do in the spring, but this is for those who qualify for free or reduced lunch. Communication is something we continue to want to work on. We're currently updating the website. We'll be implementing a new communication platform to replace Knox Alert called Instant Connect. Instant Connect will do our automated attendance calls. Currently, we have secretaries making calls every time somebody's absent. And when you get to your bigger buildings that have a lot more students, it can take some time. Most of you are aware that there's a state law that we have to call within 2 hours of the time attendance is taken in the morning. Well, we were getting pretty close in some instances because you might have 100 calls you have to make at a particular time. This new communication platform, and it doesn't have tons of bells and whistles. We got something that was going to be efficient and effective, but cost efficient as well. Within 15 minutes, it will call everybody in the district who was absent on that particular day. So the announcement is there. We'll have district, building, and teacher level. We'll have the ability to make announcements to their class. So if we happen to have to go, whether it's stay yellow or go red, we can make classroom announcements through Instant Connect. It'll also be that system we use for our weather delays and cancellations. So there will be a point at some time in the next couple of weeks where we'll slowly roll this out. We didn't want to just do everything all at once. That will kind of gradually bring people over. The Mount Vernon Digital Academy, just to give you an update, 752 students are participating in the Digital Academy. That's 20% of our total student enrollment. With that being said, that means 80% are planning on attending in person under the hybrid learning model. With that 752 students, 346 are aligned to the elementary levels. Right now, we finalized some of the teaching assignments for that. We currently have 2 teachers for every grade level at the elementary level. So we'll have 2 kindergarten teachers, 2 first grade, 2 second, 2 third, and so on. We've also assigned 3 intervention specialists to just the elementary level to serve students with special needs. We had about 120 students of this 752 who fell into the special needs category. When you really start to break it down, though, a lot of those were speech only. So the ones that had true, what we'd call academic IEPs, I think Pam was in about what? You recall?
16 times 3, 58. All right.
About 48 or 49, I think is what it ended up being. So we just felt like we needed to provide that additional support. At the middle school, there's 183 students who are going to be served. They're serving it a little bit differently. They're doing it by 3 grade level teams consisting of 5 members per team. So if you're aware of the middle school model, they have grade level teams, and each grade level team has a science, social studies, math, ELA, and intervention specialist. Their staff has decided that instead of having a double block for each team, one team is going to have an hour out of their day where they solely serve the kids who are online. And really, it comes down to 183 students. That's about 60 students per grade level. There's going to be 5 teachers serving 60 students during that hour time that they're available. And they'll be serving them in the specific areas of their need: science, English, social studies, or history. So it's a nice model that I think will really work well there, and we'll be getting that information out. The high school has been doing a digital academy for some time. They're using a very similar model to what they've done. We've added a few teachers to that cohort so that we can make sure that we have a grade-specific teacher supporting those students. The reason the 223 looks pretty high there is what's added into that 223 are the 60 or so who had already committed last year to being part of our online digital academy. So they were going to do it no matter whether we were in this situation or not. Otherwise, you're closer to 170 new students to that level. Okay. Emails will be forthcoming hopefully later this week, which was specifically related to each of the 3 grade configurations. Right now, we're looking really to start the online digital academy. We're looking to start that a week later than our regular students who will start on Monday. So they're actually going to start the following week. And we've got to get Chromebooks and things out to them. So there's some work yet to do related to that. But when you have 752 students, there takes a little bit of ramping up time to make it work. And if you know, we extended that all the way to the 9th of August. And so it just takes a little bit of time to get that up and going to where we need it. Finally, the last slide that I got that I wanted to share is one that I've been asked a lot. We put it out in the update, and there's scenarios. So what happens if, all right, test positive for COVID? If you look at the back of our restart guidance, based upon conversations with the health department, we have done a list of different scenarios. So if a student or parent caregiver tests positive, what do you do? If a student tests positive, what do you do? If a teacher tests positive, What do you do? And those scenarios are kind of listed there for you to give you some sense or idea of how that works. Obviously, if anybody tests positive, the health department's going to be right there involved in the matter, hopefully the whole way through. I did include on the last page of the restart guidance this anagram, kind of just, it's like a flow chart. And so if a student tests positive, you'll kind of go down through this flow, you'll ask the questions, and it kind of takes you on down through. Some people wonder, well, if a student gets it in class A, does that mean the whole class is immediately sent home? Not necessarily. I mean, we're going to follow the chart. Knox Public Health will be involved. Who is within proximity of that student within 6 feet? Again, we're in hybrid, so hopefully we're keeping that 6 foot distance. But then you have to be within that 6 foot window for 15 consecutive minutes or more. And so we just need to be really mindful of that as we kind of go down, as we go throughout our planning for the rest of the year. So what I wanted to do there was really just share with you as a board some of the highlights of that document. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of an overview. Feel free to go in. It talks about classes. It talks about hallways. There's lots of other guidance in there that I hope people will find helpful. Probably still lots of questions, but it'll be interesting to see these videos come out and how they address that. We'll go back to the agenda, and I'm going to let the board members look at the new teachers video. We did have our new teachers in. Really, they were new social workers because, as you know, we brought on quite a few more social workers. We have a social worker for every building, and we gave them a bus tour. We took their pictures out in front of the field house, put a little music to it. Traditionally, we would do all of that in our opening day ceremonies. I will say that today is the first day for teachers back. It just felt odd not having an opening day celebration. And, it just is what it is. Most of our professional development day today was, everybody was on their computers in their rooms instead of bringing them to big gatherings. And so I do miss that and want to make sure we get back some point we can celebrate together again. So I'll let you look at that on your own. So that's actually my items for information. Thanks for bearing with me as I just kind of shared that information. We'll get to the business part of it here. Recommended items for board approval. I have a number here in this section. High school handbooks, and middle school handbooks were being changed to reflect current guidance. That's why you're seeing those as late as you are. Item 2 is community homeschool students participating in extracurriculars. Item 3 is something that was really put on our plate last minute and requires only one reading for a board review based upon federal requirements because they want us to get this approved, and that's Title IX regulations. And so hopefully you got a chance to take a look at that. Quite frankly, what it does is it replaces this old document 5517.02. And then there is another one that we have to have done by September 1st that they just sent our way. It's a standards-based teacher evaluation piece. That overview was given to you as well. I will say that we're working right now with MVEA on our own evaluation MOU that we're looking at, just making sure that we're tying up what needs to be said here and what our group, we all kind of agree with versus the ODE stuff. And so we'll be bringing something probably to you back next month on that. Item 4 is Memorandum of Understanding for Fairfield County Educational Service Center. We've joined with them and some other bigger districts in Columbus looking at our elementary online digital curriculum. As was mentioned already, resolution number 3220 is the resolution to condemn racism and to advance equity and opportunity for Black students, Indigenous students, and students of color. And we talked about that briefly at our last board meeting. The Ohio Department of Education and their board has approved this. And so we put it there for your approval as well. We have a memorandum of understanding between the Mount Vernon Education Association and the board. It is really a COVID-19 pandemic memorandum. If you take a look at that, hopefully you got a chance to take a look at that. We worked on that collaboratively together. And I know Gary and I feel very comfortable in that conversation, just really identifying how we're going to continue to work together through this process. And finally, The Mount Vernon City School District Remote Learning Plan. Again, another piece of House Bill 164. We had a blended learning plan. Then they recommended you go to a more of a remote learning plan. And this is our documentation that we'll send to the state level. So those 7 items for your approval.
Hey, I would entertain a motion to approve those items as read.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Regola-Dye. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mrs. Getzmann. Were there any questions?
I'd just like to make a comment in thanking Superintendent Cedar and all of the staff for working so hard towards finding some solutions and moving forward as best we can during this crisis. So thank you.
I would like to reiterate that, and also the restart plan. I thought it was very well done and very clear, and I like the flow charts, the diagrams, they're very well done. So thank you. Any other questions or comments? Would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Regola-Dye.
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson. Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. Student liaison report. I'm just going to highlight the last 3 items. The first one is West Virginia high schoolers tutor younger peers virtually in math. And the math coordinator for the Berkeley County Schools in West Virginia worked with the district superintendent to develop an elementary school math tutoring program. And the tutors are high school honor students who use math games, and they read aloud to the students. And several volunteers also co-teach with the kindergarten through 5th grade teachers to review the skills on Zoom. And that was a summer program that they participated in. And the high school students wanted to give back through online tutoring. And 15 of the high school volunteers talked about their experience and said how tutoring has not only impacted the elementary students, but also themselves. And they said that younger students thrive on the personal connection and instruction. And sometimes with the games that the students don't even realize that they're doing math, which they thought was kind of cool. They were helping students enjoy math and look at it in different ways. And it helps if it seems less intimidating and increases the problem solving ability, that they'll continue their challenges with math if they enjoy it and if they feel confident in it. So I thought that was a great program. They did it virtually. Since we're in the hybrid, that might even be a possibility for us to help supplement our elementary students. The second one, I think, is for Mrs. Rose. So I'll let you read that and I won't go into it. But it's steps for successful remote IEP meetings and some good tips. The last one is why teachers should not lower expectations. I thought this was really interesting because I think that teachers are tempted right now to maybe lower expectations because they know that students are facing a lot of challenges. And they're suggesting, and this is suggested by Jamie Carroll, who is the Associate Project Director for the National Mindset Innovation Network, and Dr. David Yeager, Psych Professor at the University of Texas at Austin. And they say that teachers ask, should I make my class less challenging when my students are stressed and anxious? And I think, common sense would tell you, well, maybe you ought to make some accommodations. But they're pointing out that students will face many challenges in the coming year, and that students feel this threat. And when they do, they have all those physiological reactions and with their body, with the cortisol levels rising and so forth. And there's a graphic that even shows how raising support, I don't know if you're, oh, you didn't pull it up, okay. There's a graphic that shows if your expectations are high and your support is low, then of course there's going to be stress for the student. But if you can make the expectations and the support equivalent, in other words, providing increased support that you're really going to help students and you're making them feel comfortable with making mistakes and letting them know that failure is a starting place for growth, and to ask guiding questions to help them discover answers and learn to think logically, and being available, if you're doing it on remote, to be available in a chat room for kids to ask questions. And one gentleman who was a math teacher said, Mr. Estrada said, he's in the chat box, and he said, it's like I'm in your pocket. So all you have to do is reach in and for him. So I thought that was kind of an interesting article, and to encourage teachers not to relax the rigor of your classroom, but continue to challenge our students, but provide that extra support that they need right now. So, okay. Thank you for listening. We'll go to Fiscal Services.
Thank you. There's really nothing within the financial report, and I mean, you're welcome to open it, Mr. Sheeter. A typical financial report. In the preview, I had a discussion with Dr. Bennett and Mrs. Getzman regarding some new reporting, and I'll probably just share that with the board quarterly and kind of keep this what you're used to for right now at least. So you can scroll through here. There's nothing that jumps out. We're in the first month of the fiscal year. I feel like I'll have much more information even starting next month, as you know, we're still hiring people on this board meeting. So we've already got a list started of who we have not replaced, who has retired versus who we've hired. So we're going to calculate the difference and hopefully be able to give some more details at that time. In terms of this, unless the board has any questions, I did want to point out the appropriation update. So maybe I want to point it out. There we go. So what you're seeing here is a new fund. So we've all heard about this CARES money, but obviously we have to appropriate it. And you can see up there what was allotted to the district in the second column. I would attempt to tell you what color it is, but I don't know.
The second column is blue.
All right, thank you. The colorblind guy needs help when it comes to colors. So you can see that money was given to the district. It's federal funding, which has a little more strings than the money we're typically used to through the foundation. If you remember last year, we lost $750,000 through the CARES Act, the initial one that passed through the federal government. We were given that amount. That is not all ours. Some of that is for the non-publics in the area. But essentially they tried to make us whole. Since then, we have gotten some additional funding. So next month, or as soon as ODE approves our budget, I'll be bringing you a different fund. You're looking at a 507 fund. I'll have a 510 fund for the board to approve. We received $205,000 in that one. So my thought is, as soon as that's approved through ODE, we will use a lot of that, and we'll do a lot of account modification and all the supplies we bought, because that one has a shorter time frame. We're going to be moving it into the 510 fund. And then the 507 will have a little more freedom for a little bit longer term spending, whether we want to supplement some salaries or whatnot. So we're just waiting. We've submitted our budget and so on and so forth to ODE. So as soon as it's approved, we'll start switching some things over, and I'll be bringing that as a appropriation for the board to approve.
I would say that while we're certainly appreciative of some additional funds, we were also cut another $750,000 this year. And that doesn't go unnoticed or unseen on our forecast. So we appreciate it, but stop cutting.
Yeah.
I would entertain a motion to approve those fiscal services items as read.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Workman. Were there any questions? I would just like to know if you have any estimate at all of, and I know everything isn't purchased yet, but of the extra that we're having to spend with cleaning supplies and masks and all of the different, do you have any idea what that's costing the district?
I have a spreadsheet, but I don't have it memorized. So
Okay.
at this point, we've spent, I would be guessing. So
Okay,
we've
all
spent
right.
thousands, put it that way.
Yeah, okay, all righty. Okay, anything else? Any other questions? Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Thompson. Yes. Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Ms. Regola Dye.
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. Legislative liaison report. Ms.
Thank you.
Gillis?
I apologize for not having a link. We did not have any new facts in the flash, but I would like to highlight a couple of bills that have been introduced. HB 726 is to permit youth sports organizations to operate despite state or local health order prohibitions. HB 727 is to expand the eligibility for medically handicapped children up to the age of 26. And HB 732 would eliminate the retention of a student, retention of a third grade student for the reading guarantee in the year 2020 to 2021 school year. There were several other bills, but you can go ahead on any of the websites for our legislation, state legislation, and find those bills. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Ms. Regola-Dye. Were there any questions for her? Okay, moving ahead to student services.
I have no items for information at this time. I have just one contract with a parent to provide transportation to the learning spectrum.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion then to approve that one item.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Regola-Dye. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Workman. Were there any questions? Would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Regola-Dye,
Yes.
Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. And Mr. Cedar, personnel.
Under personnel and certificated license staff, no items for information at this time. Quite a few items for recommended for board approval. I do have 2 retirements to list there for you. Jane Coleman, a middle school science teacher. It will be effective, however, as of March 1st. So she's given that to us ahead of time. And Charlie Otting, elementary teacher at Wigan Street, has also announced his retirement effective August 11th. We do have the employment of a number of individuals, number of contracts. I will kind of roll down through those as you see them, but from substitute teachers to supplemental contracts. We kind of waited all the way to the last minute for a lot of these things like department heads and at both the middle school, high school advisors and our directors. What you're noticing there though is, and we pointed this out in the board preview, every one of these contracts looks different right now because at the very bottom of the contract basically gives the board the ability to either prorate or cancel any of those contracts based upon the current situation of where we're in. So if you would happen to be let's say well, I don't even want to go there about things being canceled, but if your activity was canceled and you didn't provide any service at that point, then you wouldn't be paid a supplemental. So a lot of these are those kind of things as you're seeing down through here. We have some extended time. And this is the addition that we added to the agenda. Laura Shelley from Bowling Green State University will be a science teacher at Mount Vernon Middle School. And you can see her little snippet on the new teacher orientation. So those items for your approval.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to approve the certificated license items as read. Thank you, Mr.
I'll second
Thompson.
that.
Thank you, Mrs. Getzmann. And were there any questions? I think it's awesome you were able to hire someone that quickly. That really worked out well. So, hey, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann,
Yes.
Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Ms. Regola-Dye,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. And classified staff.
Under classified staff, no items for information, a few items for board approval. We do have a transfer of an employee who will be moving into the part-time secretarial at Mount Vernon Middle School and some substitute employment. Those 2 items for your approval.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion then to approve those 2 items.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Workman. And do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Getzmann. And were there any questions? Hearing none, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson. Yes. Ms. Regola Dye,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. And is executive session needed or?
Yes, I do, would like a little bit of time for the appointment and the employment of staff member in executive session, please.
I would entertain a motion then to go into executive session unless anyone would like to say something before we
I
publicly.
move that we go into executive session.
And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Workman. And would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Regola Dye,
Yes.
Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, thank you. Motion carried, and we will not be taking action afterward. I understand.
No action,
No
but
action.
can we go for a quick mask break outside?
That'd be fine. And thank you all for coming this evening and for wearing your masks.